Hi, this is NextGen Picks. Look, I need you to pause for a second. Seriously, put the credit card down. I was in a big box store yesterday watching a salesperson pitch a revolutionary new upgrade to a couple. He was tossing around buzzwords like future-proof, AI-powered, and 8K clarity. And I watched this couple nod along, pull out their wallet, and hand over a $2,000 premium for a feature their own eyes physically cannot see from their couch. It honestly hurt to witness. We've hit a strange tipping point in tech where newer often just means more expensive and slightly broken. The upgrade has become a tax on your fear of missing out. Today we're not just reviewing TVs. We're staging an intervention. I'm going to walk you through the math that marketing departments desperately hope you never look at. And I'm going to show you exactly why the best-looking TV on the shelf might be the worst investment you can make right now. If you value honest, no-nonsense reviews that actually respect your bank account instead of parroting press releases, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to NextGen Picks. It helps us buy these units ourselves so we can tell you the truth without fearing a blacklist. Here is the dirty little secret the industry is terrified you'll figure out. It's not about technology anymore. It's about biology. Your eyes, they have a hard limit. It's called pixels per degree. If you're sitting 10 ft away from your TV, which is the American average, your retina literally cannot resolve the difference between 4K and 8K. It physically can't do it. So when you see that 8K sticker on the box, I don't want you to see future-proof. I want you to see a tax on your anatomy. You're paying for millions of tiny colored dots that blend into a gray soup before the light even hits your cornea. But the marketing teams, they know you love bigger numbers. 8K is twice 4K, right? Must be twice as good. Wrong. It's actually worse. And I'm going to show you exactly why using the current king of the hill, the Samsung QN900 series. This is the Samsung QN900D. On paper, it's a beast. 8K resolution, AI upscaling, a price tag that could buy you a decent used car. In the store, looping that 8K demo reel of the iguana on a rock. It looks incredible. But take it home, and the reality sets in. First off, the heat. Look at this thermal reading. This isn't a TV, it's a radiator. Because the pixels are so dense, the backlight has to scream just to push light through that tight grid. You are burning electricity just to fight the panel's own density. I've seen reports of these things tripping breakers in older houses when you try to run an Xbox and a soundbar on the same circuit. But the real insult, the content. There is almost zero native 8K content. Netflix? No. Disney? No. Your PS5 barely manages 4K half the time. So what is this $4,000 TV doing 99% of the time? It's guessing. It takes a 1080p signal from your cable box or a 4K stream from Netflix and tries to invent 30 million missing pixels to fill the screen. And sometimes it guesses wrong. You get this weird shimmering effect on textures. Faces can look waxy. Text on a news kicker gets these strange halos. You pay double the price for a picture that is arguably softer and more processed than a high-end 4K TV. You aren't buying clarity. You're buying a very expensive AI art project happening in real time on your wall. And that brings me to the dimming zone trap. This is an LED TV. It relies on backlight zones. Even with thousands of zones, it cannot control light pixel by pixel. When you have 33 million pixels, but only a few thousand dimming zones, you get blooming. See that halo around the moon? That's the backlight leaking. You paid $4,000 for perfect resolution, but you sacrificed the one thing that actually makes a picture look real. Contrast. So, if the flagship 8K model is a mathematical waste of money, what are we supposed to buy? Because I know you want the best. I want the best too. But I want the best experience, not the best spec sheet. Real quick, I need your help with this. I'm planning the roadmap for the next 3 months of testing. Do you want to see more David versus Goliath comparisons where we pit cheap generic brands against flagships? Or do you want deep dives into specific tech like OLED versus mini LED? Drop a comment below right now. Seriously, pause the video, type a budget or deep dive, and let me know. I read those to figure out what units to buy next. Okay, let's rinse the taste of that 8K pricing out of our mouths. This is the antidote. This is the LG G4. And if you're looking for the absolute best picture quality money can buy in 2026, stop counting pixels and start looking at MLA. MLA stands for Micro Lens Array. It sounds like sci-fi jargon, but it's actually really cool engineering. For years, OLEDs were perfect at black, but terrible at bright. They were dim. If you opened a curtain, the picture vanished. LG solved this not by pumping more power in, but by putting billions, literal billions of microscopic lenses over the pixels to focus the light. The result? It's blinding. We are talking about 3,000 nits of peak brightness in vivid modes. But the magic here isn't the brightness, it's the control. Remember the blooming on that 8K LED? Look at this star field on the G4. Because every single pixel is its own light source, you get infinite contrast. This is what your eye actually perceives as sharpness. A 4K image with perfect contrast looks infinitely sharper than an 8K image with washed out blacks. It's an optical illusion, but it's one that works in your favor. The G4 is typically about half the price of the 8K flagship we just looked at. Half. And for that savings, you get a picture that has more depth, better viewing angles, and doesn't heat your living room to tropical temperatures. But I know what some of you are thinking. NextGen pics, I have windows, I have a living room that gets direct sunlight at 2 p.m. I don't care about perfect blacks if I can't see the screen. Fair point. OLEDs like the G4 have glossy screens. They turn into mirrors in bright rooms. If you are watching football on a Sunday afternoon with the sun blasting in, the OLED isn't going to cut it. You don't need infinite contrast, you need brute force. Enter the Sony Bravia 9. This is the light cannon. Sony realized that they couldn't beat the Chinese brands on price, so they decided to beat everyone on processing. This is a mini LED TV, which means it uses LEDs like the Samsung, but the control algorithm is, well, it's Sony. They call it the backlight master drive. Most TVs just turn zones on and off. Sony's processor actually understands the shape of the object on the screen, say a headlight in a dark alley, and shapes the backlight to match it. It's almost spooky how good it is. In my testing, the Bravia 9 hit brightness levels that actually made me squint. I'm talking about flashbang levels of light. If you watch a lot of HDR content or sports where the field is bright green and the stadium lights are flaring, this TV creates a level of realism that OLED can't touch yet. It solves the waste problem differently. You aren't paying for invisible 8K pixels. You're paying for visible nits. You're paying for a processor that makes 4K look like 8K through contrast management, not fake pixel generation. And a weird side note, the sound. Usually TV speakers are garbage. I always tell you to buy a soundbar, but Sony does this thing where they vibrate the frame of the TV to make sound come from the screen. On the Bravia 9, it's surprisingly competent. If you're a minimalist and refuse to buy a soundbar, this is one of the few TVs that won't make your ears bleed. So, we have the OLED King for the cinephiles in the dark and the mini LED monster for the bright rooms. Both of them are cheaper than the 8K upgrade, but here is where the plot thickens, because there's a third category of buyer, the value maximizer, the person who looks at a $3,000 price tag and says, "Are you out of your mind? It's just a TV." If you want 90% of the performance of that Sony or LG, but you want to pay, let's say, $1,000, maybe $1,100. The big brands don't want you to know about this next one. In fact, seeing this TV on the shelf next to a Samsung makes the Samsung rep sweat. This next TV is the reason I say brand loyalty is for suckers. It's from a manufacturer that used to be the joke of the industry, the cheap plastic option. Now they're manufacturing the panels for the big guys and undercutting them by 50%. But there's a catch. There's always a catch with the budget killers. It's not the picture quality, it's the software and the ads. Oh man, the ads. We need to talk about the subsidized screen. You know how Kindle sells you a cheap tablet because it shows ads on the lock screen? TVs are doing that now. And this next model is the worst offender, but also the best deal. It's a complicated relationship. Let's dig into the TCL QM8 and why it might be the smartest dumb purchase you can make if you know how to bypass its brain. Let's be real. The TCL QM8 is not a television. It is a billboard that you invite into your living room. The reason this TV cost 1,100 while the Sony costs 2,800 isn't just because labor is cheaper. It's because your eyeballs are part of the transaction. This screen is subsidized. Every time you turn it on, it wants to serve you ads, track what you watch, and sell that data. The processor inside isn't optimized for image clarity. It's barely powerful enough to run the bloated operating system they stuffed into it. But, and this is a massive but, the panel itself is a miracle of economics. I measured over 3,000 nits on this thing. That is not just bright, that is squint-inducing. It has thousands of dimming zones in terms of raw hardware, glass, LEDs, and metal. You are getting 95% of the Sony Bravia 9's horsepower for 40% of the price. However, if you buy this TV, I promise you, you will do one thing. Do not connect it to the internet. I am dead serious. When you set this TV up, skip the Wi-Fi login. Don't give it your password. Treat it like a dumb monitor. Spend $150 on an Apple TV or an NVIDIA Shield and plug that in. Why? Because the moment you let the QM8's internal processor handle the smart stuff, the experience falls apart. The menus lag, the motion processing gets weirdly jittery on sports. But if you bypass all that and just let the panel do what it does best, get bright and colorful, it is the single best value in the history of home theater. You are hacking the system. You take the subsidized hardware, but you deny them the data revenue. It feels pretty good, actually. But maybe you don't want to hack. Maybe you want something that looks like art. And that brings us to the most controversial TV of the year. This is the Samsung S95D, and half of you are going to hate it. This uses a matte screen coating. In the world of high-end TVs, matte is usually a dirty word. Purists scream that it ruins the contrast, that it makes the blacks look milky instead of inky. And if I shine a flashlight directly at this screen, yeah, they're right, it looks a bit gray. But look at the LG G4 next to it. See that? That's me. That's the camera. That's the window behind me. On the glossy OLED, your brain has to constantly filter out the reflections to see the movie. On the Samsung S95D, the reflections are gone. It looks less like a TV and more like a moving painting. The colors, because this is QD OLED, quantum dot OLED, are actually richer than the LG. Red is red, not reddish orange. It is spectacular. If you have a room with windows you can't cover, this isn't just a TV, it's a problem solver. It saves your marriage because you don't have to black out the living room at 2 p.m. on a Sunday. But I cannot recommend this TV without giving you a massive warning. A warning most reviews conveniently forget. It's the One Connect box. Samsung insists on using this separate box for all your HDMI cables. It connects to the TV with one thin proprietary silver wire. It looks clean. It's great for wall mounting. But in my repair shop contacts, this box is legendary for the wrong reasons. Signal dropouts, black screens when you try to play Xbox at 120 Hz. The box gets hot, and because it's proprietary, if it breaks in 3 years, you can't just swap an HDMI cable. You are hunting for a replacement part that might not exist. It's an engineering flex that introduces a single point of failure. If you buy the S95D, you are buying the best color and the best anti-glare tech on the market, but you are tethering it to a box that has a history of flaking out. So we have the smart dumb TCL, the refined but risky Samsung, and the OLED king LG. But I know what you're thinking, NextGen picks. I just want a TV that works, lasts 10 years, and doesn't require a separate streaming box or a risk assessment. Well, there is one more option. It's not the brightest, it's not the cheapest, but it is the only one I trust to survive a nuclear winter. And oddly enough, nobody talks about it anymore. This is the Sony X90L. And if the other TVs we looked at are sports cars or high-maintenance supermodels, this is a Toyota Camry. It is boring. It is reliable. And it is the only TV on this list I would bet my own money will still be working perfectly in 7 years. Sony didn't chase the mini LED hype train with this one. It uses standard full-array local dimming. On paper, that sounds like ancient technology compared to the thousands of zones on the TCL. But remember what I said about processing. This is where the waste argument comes full circle. Most of what you watch isn't 4K HDR Blu-rays. It's YouTube. It's cable news. It's old sitcom reruns. The Samsung QN900D tries to brute force that signal into 8K, and it looks like a mess of digital artifacts. The Sony X90L, its XR processor, is the best lie detector in the business. It knows the signal is bad, so it smooths out the noise without losing the detail. It makes bad content look watchable. If you are buying a TV for a family living room where grandma watches cable, the kids watch compressed cartoons, and you watch sports, this is the safe bet. It doesn't have the infinite contrast of the OLED or the blinding brightness of the Bravia 9, but it also doesn't have burn-in risk. It doesn't have a One Connect box that fails, and it doesn't require you to hack the operating system to make it usable. It just works. So, we've looked at the data, we've seen the thermal scans, we've seen the pixel density charts, and the conclusion is pretty uncomfortable for the marketing departments. The best TV on the shelf, that 8K flagship, is a scam. It is a product designed to extract maximum profit from people who don't understand human biology. Here is the verdict. If you want the best picture, period, buy the LG4 OLED. You're paying for micro-lens array tech that solves OLED's brightness problem. It's perfect contrast. It's the visual benchmark. Just keep it out of direct sunlight. If you want the best value and you're willing to tinker, buy the TCL QM8. It's 95% of the performance for 40% of the price, but you must keep it offline and use an external streamer. Do not let its software run your life. If you want the buy it for life reliability, buy the Sony X90L. It's the adult in the room. It handles low-quality content better than anything else, and it's built to last. And the hard pass, avoid at all costs the Samsung QN900D or any 8K LED. You're paying a 100% premium for pixels you can't see, power bills you don't want, and upscaling artifacts that make your picture worse. Look, companies rely on the upgrade cycle. They need you to feel like your current tech is garbage, so you buy the shiny thing. My job is to tell you when the shiny thing is just polished glass. I've linked the specific models we talked about below, specifically the older revisions or the safe panels that don't have the defects we mentioned. Those are vetted links. They go to the listings I actually trust, not the sponsored new arrival pages. If this saved you from making a $4,000 mistake, do me a favor, hit that like button. It keeps the lights on and keeps us honest. This is NextGen Picks. Stop buying the hype. I'll see you in the next.